Last time we talked about some of the basics of Apache Spark and how you could utilize that to um, store and represent data. Today we're going to talk a little more about the actual data mining part itself. It is almost like a cliche that people call internet is the sea of information, and in fact that's true to some extent, right? Because nowadays there are so many information on the internet, part of which might be really useful for your own application. So an ability to actually explore that information and then collect them and organize them in a way that you want is kind of a necessary skill set to have as a data scientist. And the problem is, since there are so many different web pages, so many informations out there, it is impossible for you to kind of manually collect all the information. So you need somehow an automated tool to collect those information. So we're gonna talk about some of those skills. So the term data mining is actually from that analogy of mining oils and natural resources. So imagine internet as sort of a natural like the ground where lots of useful information, useful resources are buried, and then what you want to do is to mine some of those information using some techniques. Okay, we're gonna talk about especially 3 different techniques, and produce the information that you're looking for. So one of the ways to mine information from the internet is to use public data sets. So public data sets are obviously data sets that are made available by the owner of the data set or somebody who collected a data set. Nonetheless, those are the data sets that are already kind of processed and then made it available, so you can perhaps just simply click and download the information. So for example, the US government has this website called the data.gov. And then if you go there, then you can browse different data sets under different categories. So you can see the climate data, agricultural data, education data, energy data, and a lot of different data that's collected by the US government is available on data.gov. So that's one of the places where you can find the public data sets. I don't know how many of you heard of this website called the Kaggle.com. So Kaggle is a website where a lot of people actually share their data set. There sometimes are competitions. So people, especially companies, upload a data set, and then there's a prize money, and then they ask people to participate in a data analysis challenge on that data set. So it is kind of a platform where a lot of people can kind of join and use, and there are thousands of data sets that are already publicly available. So here I'm showing you the website. So this is Kaggle.com. There are competitions. These are the competitions where different organizations or sometimes individual upload a data set and then post a data analysis task, and then there's even a prize money, and then whoever records the top 3 or top 5 in accuracy, those are going to get the prize money. So for example, here we see this RSNA pulmonary embolism detection data set. So RSNA is a Radiology Society of North America. and then they have a prize money of $30,000. If you click that, then there's a description of the data set, what they're looking for, how their data is organized. If you go to the data tab, you can see that there are a total of about 1,000 gigabytes of data. We have a train.csv file, test.csv file, and then in the train directory, there are a lot of subfolders, which I think are the, yeah, so those are the medical images. It seems like it's a volumetric. So it says a chest CT scans. So these are the CT scans of different patients. And then we have many of them. We have actually several thousands of CT images from training. And then we have about 1,000, a little less than 1,000 of images for testing. And then we have CSV file, which I think contains the metadata. And anyone who wants to download the data set can join the competition and then download the data set. A nice thing about Kaggle is that there is a collection of notebooks that are submitted by public users. So if I go to this notebooks tab, you can see a lot of people have posted their Python notebook. It's basically like the Google Colab. So for example, here's one example where somebody posted a source code for training a machine learning model using this library called the PyTorch. Okay. So here you can see the example of loading the data set. Here's kind of a preview of the data set. And then, people kind of share the functions and, source code that they developed so that anyone who wants to join the competition can, instead of beginning and writing everything from the scratch, you can jumpstart by looking at somebody else's code. So this is a really nice sort of an online community where people share their code, discuss some of the challenges, and then if you go to the leaderboard, you can see a lot of people are ranked here, and then their performance is ranked in the order of the score. So it seems like this competition is looking for people with the, I guess, the lowest score. So lowest the better, I think. And then it says the top 10 is going to get the prize money. So it's a platform for that kind of data competition. Also, there are publicly available data sets that doesn't belong to any of those competition with the monetary prize, but there are just data sets that are shared by a lot of different people. So as you can see, there are all sorts of different data that's available in Kaggle. So you can just simply click any of those data sets, and then you can simply just download it and then use it for your own purpose. So whenever you have a problem and you're not sure where to begin with, Kaggle is one of the go-to places where you can search your problem and then see if there's already a publicly available data set posted on Kaggle. If there is, then you're lucky, right? You can instead of trying to collect all the information from scratch, you can begin with an existing data set, test your hypothesis. If the hypothesis is correct, then you can decide whether or not you want to, further collect more data set, things like that. So Kaggle is one of those websites that can be really useful. Here's another really popular data repository maintained by the University of California, Irvine campus. So this is a machine learning repository where you can find a lot of standard data set for testing machine learning models. There are tons of different data sets that's available in this website. For example, Iris data set is really popular data set in machine learning. This is kind of like de facto, kind of a hello world data set for many data scientists. So if you click this one, then you can see the data description, relevant publications, and if you go to the data folder, then you can see the data files over here. So in this case, iris.data is the text file. So here's just that file loaded up with a text editor. You can see that there are numbers. So this is basically a comma separated file. So I could actually open this with Microsoft Excel and then have a nice graphical display of the data set, but it doesn't matter. I just wanted to show you what the data set looks like. And there are actually a lot of different data sets that's available in the UCI machine learning repository. So again, this is another kind of go-to places for machine learning or data scientists who wants to test their hypothesis or who wants to test their machine learning model, how well it performs on the standard data set, and compare their performance with the other algorithms and so on and so forth. So those are just some examples of the publicly available data sets. And in fact, it is not so difficult actually to, I mean, once you're able to discover a publicly available data set, you know, the later process is pretty simple. You can just download a data set and then load it up like what we've done last time, right? In Apache Spark, and then you can start from there. So it's mostly about how well you can search an information on Google. So I'm not going to explain any further detail in terms of how to access public data set. The real thing that we're going to talk about today is the web crawling and scraping. So like I said earlier, data mining, data acquisition from websites, and you know, typically it happens you know, over multiple websites, not just one page, but there can be many source websites from which you want to retrieve information. And that's obviously going to be really tedious and involve a lot of repetition, a lot of menial work. So you probably don't want to do everything manually. So in those cases, we use these tools called the web crawlers or web scrapers. For example, here, dataminer.io is one of the really useful and easy to use data crawler that you can freely download. So if you go to data-miner.io, the page like this will pop up. Data Miner is available as a Google Chrome extension. It also supports the Microsoft Edge browser. I don't have much experience with that browser, so I'm using Google Chrome. And then if you click this button, then you'll be led to the Chrome Web Store, and then you can simply just, so in my case, I already have this installed in my browser. So the button says remove from Chrome, but if you don't have it yet, then there's gonna be an install button over here. So by clicking this, excuse me, by clicking this, the Chrome browser is going to add the Data Miner Pro extension, and then this is the icon that you're looking for. If you don't see the icon, then you can click this puzzle-shaped button, and then there's got to be a Data Miner Pro, and you probably want to check this this pin button to make it available on your browser. So I'm going to show you a really simple example of using Data Miner. So let's say you're looking for scraping some product information from, let's say, Amazon. So what would be a good search keyword? So let's just type big data, okay? And then as I search with the keyword big data, I see lots of results, right? We have primarily a list of books, right? So we have lots of different books that involves the keyword big data, right? And let's say you somehow want to scrape the information of the product list. So you want to, for example, retrieve the book titles, book price, the author information, and so on and so forth. Obviously, doing everything manually is going to be really tedious because what you will need to do is maybe open an Excel spreadsheet and then manually drag and copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste. And then there are roughly 60 items displayed in one page. And it's not the only page. Obviously, you want to go to the next page and then do the same thing again, manually drag and copy, paste, copy, paste. So it's a really tedious, time-consuming job. So that's where Web Scraper can come in. So I'm going to click this data miner button. You don't have to do this right now. I'm just showing you an example. And then later on, you'll have a chance to do it your own. So this is kind of, this is the main interface of the data miner app. And on the left-hand side, we have this, this tab, and that's where you're going to begin with. Okay, so in our case, we have a list or search page, right? That's what we're looking for. So I'm going to click this one. One of the nice thing about Data Miner app is that they come with lots of tutorial videos. So that's why I have chosen, among many other data mining tools, is because it comes with a really nice video tutorials and everything. So it's a really good tool for beginners. Just to let you know, there are actually a lot of other data mining software, so you don't really have to stick with this data miner app. You can feel free to go with the whatever you want to go with. But here, so I click this list search page option, and then you can see the tabs over here. So the first tab is the overview tab that explains the procedure, how to use data miner tool to scrape information. So we're going to just skip this and then go to the first tab. And in the first tab, you can select a recipe. Another nice thing about the data miner app is that the recipe for scraping the information can be shared publicly. And in fact, if you plan to scrape a website like Amazon, which is quite popular, right? Then you can almost always expect a public recipe that's shared by somebody else. So for example, I'm gonna select this one, Amazon.com search list 2019, and then as I click this button, you already see this kind of a preview of the information that is scraped from this website. So let's see if this table makes sense. So this table comes with the URL column, title column, subtitle column, rating column, review column, price column, description and shipping column, ISIN, it's Amazon product identification number, image URL column, and those seems to be the columns that could be scraped from this website. And let's compare this line by line. So the first row here is a cloud computing solutions architect, a hands-on approach, blah, blah, blah. And as you can see over here, that's the first item on the list. And then I'm going to move on to the second row. And the second row is a big data, a revolution that will transform how we live, work, and think. And as you can see, this is the second item from the search list. And then, not to our surprise, the third row corresponds to the third item over here. And you will see that the entire list of the products, okay, all the way down to the last item, data lake development with big data. Here, data lake development with big data has been scraped from this website. Okay. Now, so that's the recipe. So you can actually, try a bunch of different recipes that are shared by somebody else. Um, some recipes might not be something that you're looking for. So it seems like there's some recipes written in French, and these recipes doesn't seem to be relevant because it's an Amazon product page. So if I click this one, then I'll probably not see, much of information. Well, it does seem to work somehow, but I guess search list 2019 is the one that is closest to what I was looking for. Now, after you select the recipe, then you can go to the next tab, which is the page nation. And the page nation is basically, you have this first page right now, but you want to probably, go all the way to the page 7, right? And scrape all the product information from all the entire search results. So that's about pagination. So for example, here, now that I have the recipe to use for each of the page, I can define the number of pages to scrape. So I'm going to just use the default. Well, maybe I'll change it to 3 pages because I don't want to wait, too long. And then the delay between pages, that's kind of a safety factor that you set in case your internet connection is not that, fast. So since I'm here to just demonstrate, I'm not to scrape the entire product pages. So I'm going to just use 5 seconds, which probably is going to be enough. And then after I set those parameters, I can click this play button and you will see that there's something happening. So we've just scraped the first page, and then now it's scraping the second page. And then we're scraping the third page. And in fact, sorry, let me go back and start over again, because it seems like I have accidentally moved to a page that has a product description as opposed to the search list. So I'm gonna go back to Amazon and then type the keyword again. And then click Data Miner app. Start scraping. And then select recipe. And here's a search list 2019. Then to the next tab, I'm going to use only 3 pages, and then delay between pages 5 seconds, and then scrape 3 pages. So now you can see that, well, it was not my fault. It seems like the recipe is not functioning very well. Or is it because of the delay between pages? Yeah, it seems like it's a problem with the recipe. For some reason, the pagination doesn't work really well, so it somehow goes into the product details as opposed to the search list result. So I'm gonna stop it over here. And unfortunately, the result doesn't look okay, because we have, after scraping 2 pages, we only have 64 rows. Um, that's sometimes a problem, because website like Amazon, they actually hate scrapers, because I mean, web scraping obviously will impose a lot of burden to their server, right? If everyone somehow runs an automated script and then navigate through their website, then it's going to impose an unnecessary burden to their website. So that's why they actually changed the HTML tags and classes of their web interface internally, so that the web scraper algorithm doesn't, really work well. So that's why the recipe from 2019 doesn't really work very well, although it worked for just a single page. So in those cases, well, in fact, I was going to show you how to create a new recipe. So here's how you do that. So in case you cannot find a recipe that works for you, then you have an option to create your own recipe. So you can click this new recipe button, and then click this this button over here, and then it'll pop up this thing called the recipe creator. Now the interface is pretty much the same. You're gonna just click through the tabs and then accomplish or fill out the information in each tab. So the first tab over here is to define the type of a page. Obviously, this is a list page, right? Because we have a list of search results. Now I'm going to move to the next tab, which is to define rows. Now here's an important part to remember. Okay, so they come with this find button, which is to find an HTML element in a graphically intuitive way. So as opposed to, kind of search through the source code and then look for a HTML tag, you can actually move your mouse cursor, and then it'll highlight different HTML elements like this. And then by hitting the shift key, it's gonna retrieve the HTML element, and then the magic find tool is going to show you some of the unique identifiers that is associated with this block with the dashed line. Apparently, the row that we're looking for is this entire block that contains the image of the product, the title, the star rating, the author name, price, and everything. So that's the block that we're looking for. And then the one that I selected is still quite narrow. So I can actually expand the selection by clicking the parent button. And then this is going to go up, a level. And then now, after clicking the parent button a few times, now I have the dashed line kind of, circumscribing the information that I'm looking for. So after I have the dashed line highlighting the appropriate HTML element, what I'm going to do is basically to select a unique identifier. And now, I don't know if you noticed, after I select those checkboxes, you can see that the other items are highlighted with the green box, okay? And then you can see that the green boxes are set on the product thumbnails only, not the other items. So that means I have selected a correct one, okay? Maybe the need help part isn't supposed to be selected there, but I can tell you recipes cannot be perfect. So, instead of being lazy and try to come up with a perfect recipe, you probably want to just scrape whatever is available and then later on do the data cleaning. So I'm going to just leave with it, and I'm going to just click confirm button. And that's how I select the rows. And again, here's the tutorial that you can click, and then it directs you to a video explaining how to select a row. So in case you want to know more details, that's the video that you're looking for. Now I'm going to move to the columns menu, columns tab. And then here I can enter how many number of parameters I want to enter. So let's say I'm interested in, first of all, the title of a product. So I'm going to change the name of the first column to title. And then, yes, I want to extract a text. And then the selector is similar from the previous example. So I'm going to just click find. And I'm going to move my mouse cursor to the title of one of those product view. And then I will hit the shift button. And that will highlight this particular item in a dashed line. And then there are some unique identifiers. So I'm going to just click everything. And then after I do that, you'll see that the corresponding items of the other products are also highlighted in the purple box, which means, yes, the tag that I selected was correct, right? So you can see that the book titles are all selected pretty well. So I'm going to just click confirm. Now that's our first column. Of course, I can add, as many columns as I want. The next column I'm gonna include is a price. And then one thing I figured before coming to the class today was that Amazon somehow splits the price information to the whole number portion and the fraction. So we will actually need to have two different columns, one for the whole price. And then I'm going to select the whole number portion of the price, which is this. So as you can see, the price information is split into the whole number portion and then the fraction. So I'm going to click this one, the whole number portion. Oops. Yes, one thing that you have to be very careful is you should not actually left click. So what I just did by mistake was to click the product information with a left click. So that somehow changed my view, and then that closes actually the recipe creator. So I'll have to actually go back from the beginning, but don't worry, it shouldn't take too much of time. So always remember to hit the shift key rather than left clicking. So that was the item that I selected previously. Okay, and then the first column was title. I already show you how to do that. So I'm gonna just go straight without explanation. And then I'm going to add a new column, and that was supposed to be price whole. There you go. It was not too horrible. So I'm going to click the finder again, and then I put my mouse cursor on top of the price information, and then I'll hit the shift key, and then now that highlights the whole number portion of the price in a dashed line. Again, I'm going to select the unique identifier. Excuse me. Then there you go. You can see that the purple boxes are set around the price information. Okay, so I'm going to click confirm. Then there you go. That's our next column. I'm going to just show you one more thing, which is the fraction. So I'm going to just call it price fraction. And then I'm going to use the selector again. The same procedure, but I put my mouse cursor to the cent part, right? And then hit the shift button. And then here, I click the identifier and then confirm it. Then now, there you go. Now we have 3 columns. Of course, I could do it with the, the author information, the star ratings, and, all that kind of stuff. But here, for the sake of time, I'm going to just go ahead with just 3 columns. Now, the next tab is the Navigator. The navigation element is for pagination. So like I said, this is just the first page of all 7 pages that we want to scrape. So we want to actually select an HTML element that allows you to navigate through to the next page. So here, what I mean by that is, okay, I'm going to select the Find button, and then I'm going to put my mouse cursor on top of this Next button. So that's the Navigator button. And then I'm going to hit the Shift key. And, you know, this actually was something that required me to kind of, you know, do some several trials and errors to finally figure out how to make it work. But, you know, after trial and error, what I figured out was, first of all, this tag was relevant, but it somehow selects all the links, okay, as you can see over here. So I checked the unique identifier over here, but actually the selection is not unique. So you can see that the blue boxes are set around all the hyperlinks in the page. So that is not specific enough. So what I ended up doing was to append some other unique identifiers. And to do that, here, right now the append mode is set to append off. I'm going to click this to convert it to append on. And then I'm going to move to the parent. Now in the parent, I have some other unique identifiers. So the parent of this button has the unique identifiers called the LI and the A last. And then as I click these two, I can kind of narrow down the search result. Actually, yeah, maybe this one. And then for some reason, I kind of messed up the HTML portion. So there we go. So now, you know, after I add the parent element, now you can see that the blue box is only set on this next button. So I click confirm here. And then if I test the navigation, then you can see that the search result goes to the next page. Okay. Now, finally, there are 2 other tabs called Actions and JavaScript. Those are for advanced users. So JavaScript is obviously, you can create your own JavaScript. So this is the text editor where you can write a simple JavaScript to do some sort of a post-processing after the data scraping. The Actions tab is also pretty similar to that, but I'm not going to go into those details because those are for advanced users, and I don't think you're going to need it for the scope of this course. But in case you're interested, they have really nice tutorials, like I said, so it's actually pretty easy to figure out as long as you know what JavaScript is. So, but today I'm going to just skip through those tab number 6 and tab number 7, and then I'm going to just go directly to the Save tab. So now here, the recipe name, I'm going to just be lazy and then use the default name, but you can obviously specify your recipe name. I don't want to share my recipe publicly, so I'm going to just click not share. And then if I click scrape and data miner, now it pops up data miner screen again, from which I can go to the list search page again. And then in the select a recipe, instead of going for a publicly available recipe, I'm going to go for this My Recipes tab. And then here's the recipe that I just created. And now you can see that the information is properly, you know, scraped from the search page. Now I'm going to go to the next pagination. Again, I'm going to scrape only 3 pages, and then I'm going to allow 5 seconds of delay. If I do this, then the first page was scraped successfully. There's total 61 rows. We're waiting 5 seconds to move to the second page. Now there you go. We move to the second page, and then we have added 61 additional rows by scraping the page 2. We're waiting for 5 seconds to move to this page 3, and then page 3, we scrape additional 61 rows, and then we actually ended up scraping page 4 as well. So this is actually something that is kind of misleading. So the number of pages to scrape does not include the current page that you're in. So excluding the current page, you're going to scrape 3 additional pages. So that's why we ended up scraping, total 4 pages, which doesn't really matter, right? The more you scrape, the more data you have. So nothing to complain about. So finally, if I go to the download tab, you can see that all 244 rows are available like this. And of course, you can compare this with the actual website, but I'm not going to bother to do that. Instead, if I click the Save As button, then here's an interface for you to save the data in the save result. And then you can actually link this data with your account, or you can just simply download the data set as a CSV file. And there you go. I have a CSV file containing product information that I scraped from Amazon, along with the price information. Somehow split it into the whole number part and the fraction. Okay. So that's a really neat tool to have, right? Because it can be really useful depending on what your application is. And then I have not used any of computer programming, which is kind of nice part, right? Without having to worry too much about writing a code, you can actually scrape an information pretty easily. Of course, although the demonstration has been on the Amazon product page, you could actually do that on virtually whatever website that you're looking to scrape. So this is really nice tool to have for a data scientist. Again, like I said, there can be many other tools that allows you web scraping under GUI interface. So you're more than welcome to explore that. And I'm not tied with this data miner software. So even if you use a different tool, that doesn't do anything to me. So yeah, but in my opinion, this is probably the best tool for beginners. Now, here's what we can do with scripting. So first of all, before to show you any of those scripts, I want to explain some of the terminologies to make sure that we're using the same vocabulary. The first thing is a crawler. So when you say web crawler, it's sometimes called a web robot or web spider. Those are all kind of commonly used terms. A robot or a crawler or spider is a software program that automatically kind of travels around the internet by getting into different hyperlinks. So what it does is it basically goes to a web page, and then on that web page, whatever hyperlink is available, the crawler is going to just click that that hyperlink, and then go to the web page that is directed by the hyperlink. And then it's going to repeat that process over and over again. So in theory, by doing that, you're going to search for the entire website, right? By clicking through the hyperlinks. And that's kind of a systematic way to browse the internet. The reason why web crawlers are used or robots are used is, for example, for a search engine to build an index. So what Google does, for example, is to deploy robots called Googlebot, and then it basically collects document from the web, and then it caches the web page on their internal server. So what cache means, basically making a copy of a web page and then save that internally within their server. Okay, so a web page sits somewhere on the web server that is physically apart from the Google server. And this crazy little idea of Google, which originally people were quite skeptical about it, but Google obviously demonstrated that, their idea was not so crazy. So what the $1 million idea of Google was that, the way that the internet works is basically there's this physical appliance called server. And then, inside of server, you basically host a web page, okay? So typically they're written in an HTML file format. So we have, a server can have lots of HTML files. So index.html, index.html, main.html. It can have lots of HTML pages, and then they are somehow linked together. Okay, those are called the hyperlinks, right? So if you go to a web page, you'll see a lot of buttons that you can click around, right? And those are the hyperlinks that connects you to, some other HTML pages. So index.html is usually the main page of a website, and obviously that's going to contain a lot of hyperlinks that directs you to different pages. And then maybe internally they have kind of referencing each other, right? So there are lots of hyperlinks like that. And obviously the thing called the internet is basically a collection of servers hosting, different HTML pages. So that's what is called the World Wide Web, right? So here's another server containing lots of HTMLs. Here's another server containing lots of HTMLs. And previously, what the search engines has done at a conceptual level was to visit whenever user searches a keyword. Let's say here's a guy who searched big data. Okay, what search engine search engine did previously was to visit all the servers, okay, that are listed by the search engine, and then visited all the HTML pages that contains the keyword big data, and then retrieve that information and then displayed it to the user. That was how the search engines worked previously. Now, the crazy idea of Google, okay, which a lot of people were skeptical at the beginning, was to have an internal server. So that's a Google server. And then what they did was to send out a robot. Actually, not a robot, but multiple robots. So what they have done was to send out lots of robots to different web servers, and then they copied all the HTML files. And then they kind of internally stored a copy of a website internally inside of their server. And whenever a user enters a search keyword, let's say big data again, then instead of sending the query to the other servers and then retrieve the information, Google's idea was basically to search everything locally without having to send, forward the query to the other servers. And in that way, they were able to dramatically improve the speed of search by the order of magnitude. Okay, so that was the main innovation of Google. Of course, I'm not to explain how Google works, basically, but the reason why I'm mentioning this is in order to enable this idea, one of the things that you need is a robot that basically just, traverse the universe of web pages and then create a copy of that web page back to this local server, right? So that's why Google uses a web crawler or a robot to make the search happens, okay? Yeah, in fact, the way that Google works, it's actually a lot of fun stories, but I guess I should avoid getting distracted too much. So let me erase everything. Another example is here, this thing called the Xenon. It's a web crawler used by the government tax authorities to detect tax frauds. So again, it's kind of a systematic way of browsing the World Wide Web, and then it crawls the information that's relevant to the to text. E-commerce companies like Amazon or other e-commerce companies, they also use robots. Sometimes they use it in a way that is not so, how do I say, ethical, I guess. Ethical is the word that I was looking for, I guess. So, such as, one e-commerce company crawls automatically the other competitor's website and then automatically scrape the information about the price. And then based on that information, they automatically tune their own price so that they have a competitive advantage over their competitors, those kind of purposes. And then there was actually a lot of lawsuits and, things like that between e-commerce companies. And then there's this notorious e-commerce company called the eTao, which has been, after lots of lawsuit, which has been blacklisted by many other e-commerce companies, including Amazon. So that incident was actually quite kind of a famous example of web crawling or robots and things like that. Of course, I mean there are lots of web crawlers other than Googlebot and Xenon or the e-commerce company thing. You can also build your own open web crawler using open source libraries like a scraping hub. Beautiful Soup is another kind of a Python library that allows you to crawl different websites. We're going to actually see this in the lab section, probably on Thursday. I guess it's already too late for today. One thing I want to really emphasize is that the web crawlers are actually fascinating in a sense that you can automatically mine information by sending out a robot, and then the robots will, do the data collection for you. And then once you have a script that is written for you, then you can just every now and then, send out a robot and then collect the information without, doing much of your work. So it can be really kind of fascinating option for you to collect information. However, obviously, some people use it for some malicious purposes. And because of that, the web community has this sort of a policy guidelines for web crawlers. And you have to be careful that if you don't follow the web crawling policies of different website, your IP might be blacklisted forever. So there are some web crawler policies that are relevant to our context. The first one is a selection policy, which basically states what are the pages that you can download. Okay, so for each of the web sites, they have kind of a policy internally defined. And then that's posted as, you probably have seen this thing called the robots.txt. So robots.txt file is a policy file that explains what's accessible and what's not accessible, what is permitted and what is prohibited. Those kind of information is stored in the robots.txt file. And, these are kind of 4 different categories that can be defined as a web crawler policy. So first thing is a selection policy. And then the robots.txt file actually has a list of pages that can be downloaded or cannot be downloaded, can be accessed, cannot be accessed, and so on and so forth. There's a revisit policy. So again, in order to prevent a robot repeatedly visit the same page and then, pose a burden to the server, there's a revisit policy. And the revisit policy basically says, okay, you can revisit a web page only under certain conditions. Okay, And if you revisit the same page against that policy, then you're going to be blacklisted. The third policy is a politeness policy. And the politeness policy is basically, saying that, hey, be nice, okay? And usually the concern is the overload. So again, a robot is an automated script, right? So technically, you can access a web page like 1,000 times per second. And then if you do that for I don't know, like an hour or so, then you're gonna generate like millions of click streams into a web page, and then that is going to overload the server, and then the other innocent users may not be able to use the website, and so on and so forth. So politeness policy is basically to prevent that kind of activities. And then finally, the parallelization policy is about the coordination of multiple web crawlers. Again, the similar reason, you don't want to overload a website. So be nice, when you coordinate the web crawlers is basically what this parallelization policy states. Now, this is probably the most important slide that I want to show you before we get into the lab section, which is the robot.txt. So instead of just explaining things, I'm going to just show you an example. So for instance, let me stop annotating. Here, I'm going to go to Amazon.com, and then here /robots.txt. So Amazon.com/robots.txt is the web crawler policy that is published by Amazon.com. And what it says is for all users, they must follow these rules. Okay. And the rules are basically a collection of disallows and allows. Okay. So for example, you're disallowed to automatically crawl this page under Amazon.com. So you're not allowed to automatically navigate the information under this URL, okay? And then there are a bunch of them, okay? So these are the information that are not allowed by Amazon against crawlers. There are, though, pages that are allowed to be crawled. And here, as you can see, there are some URLs there are some pages, sorry, that are allowed to be crawled. And, there are quite a few of them. So an ethical way of designing the web crawler is to make sure that your robot follows this allow, disallow rules, okay? Now, here at the bottom, you can see this eTau spider. So eTau spider is basically a web crawler that is developed by this e-commerce company called eTau. And then they've been actually quite notorious for their crawlers. So they have, they bugged a lot of people by sending their crawlers and then retrieve information without following the robots.txt. So what it basically says is user agent eTau spider is going to be disallowed from the entire directory, entire website. Okay, so if you abuse a web server by sending a web crawler that doesn't fulfill the requirement, then the ramification of that might be something like this. Yeah, so in fact, almost every website has this robots.txt file. For example, I'm pretty sure uiowa.edu would also have robots.txt. Yes, there you go. So here, the University of Iowa also has this robots.txt, which seems to be quite a boilerplate, I guess. So for all user agents, CSS files, JS files, and image files are allowed to be crawled. And then you're not allowed to access these directories. You're not allowed to crawl these files. You're not allowed to, crawl this path and so on. So almost every website has this robot.txt file. So before to crawl a website, you must always check robots.txt file because again, what is visible doesn't mean that you have a right to access and manipulate the information, and that actually can lead to a serious legal problem. So one thing to remember is that something is available and visible on the web doesn't necessarily mean that it's in the public domain, and being visible doesn't automatically mean that you can download and store information using an automated program. And not following this convention may actually lead to a legal dispute. And there are actually a lot of legal cases where people are sued by illegally crawling the information on the internet. Okay. Now, because of that, actually a lot of pages, a lot of web services that are frequently being target of web crawling, they actually have an application programming interface, which allows people to access information in a legal manner. And even better yet, with some off-the-shelf function they can utilize. For example, Twitter is a famous source of data mining. A lot of people mine information from Twitter. They retrieve how many times a certain hashtag is mentioned. They use Twitter tweets to analyze social trends and political opinions and things like that. And a lot of people wants to access the information. So instead of allowing crawlers to do the automated things that might not be compliant to the internal policy of Twitter, they decided to develop an application programming interface, which can be downloaded from dev.twitter.com. And then as you sign up as a developer, Twitter gives you an access to an application programming interface, which has a lot of predefined functions that can be useful in terms of searching certain hashtags and retrieving tweets, last 24 hours or something like that. So it's really useful, and everything is written in Python. So it's really popular API that a lot of people uses. Facebook has the same thing. They have a Facebook API, and that can be accessed from the developers.facebook.com. There are many other APIs officially or unofficially released by those service providers. We are actually going to see some examples of those in our next lab section. So in case the website or a web service provides an API, then probably API is the way to go. In case you have to crawl your own data, then you'll have to make sure that you follow the web crawler policy. Otherwise, you might be banned from a service, or even worse is you might become a subject of a legal action. So you have to be always really be careful when you crawl information from the internet.